City. It's the Tonight Show's
Max Power.
And now, here he is, Jimmy
Max Power. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in into the Tonight Show. I'm your host, Max Power, and I am super excited for tonight's episode. On tonight's show, we've got a legendary guest, and usually we'd have the monologue section here, but honestly, I just want to get straight into the interview with our guest today. He's a hardworking individual. Honestly, I'm flattered to call him a friend. He's so kind-hearted, and I've known him for such a long time that you could even say that he's kind of like a brother to me. Anyways, without further ado, we've got the one, the only, the senior of 2021, a legendary tenor saxophone player, the one and only Mark Manguinao. Everybody give it up.
Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here. I always watch the show, and I'm just really excited to be here.
Mark, we're super excited to have you on the show tonight. I'm super grateful. Our whole audience is riveted by the next 10, 15 minutes we're going to be spending with each other. So I thought it actually would be a really fun and great idea. Pre-show, we actually went around the audience, and we actually had audience members submit their questions that they wanted to ask you about the specific marching band season, but more importantly, about the drum major position you are running for. So if it's okay with you, we've actually prepared some questions here straight from the audience, and they would love to learn more about yourself, what your thoughts are about the process, looking forward into the future, and details like that. Mark, if you're game, we'd love to get started. What do you think?
That sounds awesome. Let's get into it.
Mark, so we're super excited. So let's go ahead and get started. Number one, first question that we have over here is, what can you contribute as a leader in the program? What are your reservations and concerns?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking that. I think that personally, I can act as both a mentor and a friend to those that are new to the program, whether that be a freshman or people that are just joining band for the first time. I could definitely take on that leadership and help them out wherever it need be. Furthermore, I think that I can act as a servant leader, which is something that I think is really important if one were to be put in the drum major position, and that means to put the needs of others before your own, whether that be individual people or sections as a whole. I think that improving those to the best of my ability, that's one of the most important things as well. Lastly, I think because of my experience within the program for over 3 years, especially last year being section leader, I think that I can empathize with other student leaders and figure out what is required of the band and come up and implement a plan to help individual members and the ensemble overall, work towards that overall goal of either making it to championships or winning. The second question you asked, if I had any concerns about the band, I think definitely one of the biggest things is finding that right balance in between getting work done and having time to play and joke around, because there's always going to be a time to have fun, but when it gets to it, we really need to be able to focus and work towards getting our drill done, passing off music, and just improving to the best of our abilities.
Wow, Mark. Yeah, that was a great answer. And just to get into the next question that we have over here, just curious, what do you feel is the most important thing to improve in your section? And if you can, go ahead and explain in detail how you can make this happen.
That's a really great question. Personally, I think that the most important thing to improve within the low saxes as a whole is to make sure that we stay focused as much as possible during that on time where we are rehearsing or we are in our smaller sectionals, and not let the breaks go on for too long or not let jokes get out too far out of hand, because a lot of the time that does tend to happen because we are a rambunctious group of people. But I think the main way to be able to mitigate that would be to set expectations right from the very beginning of the year, what everybody wants to do and what everybody wants to achieve in band, and keeping that goal in mind and having a mutual understanding within the section of when it's time to work versus when it's time to take a break and chill out. But even writing schedules, setting goals, daily reminders of what we want to get done, either that be yearly, monthly, weekly, whatever needs to get done, set goals, expectations, and reinforce that throughout the entire year. And I think we get far.
Mark, that's actually a really great suggestion and idea right there. I think tracking is huge. Now, to take that further, to look at the group overall, what do you feel is the most important thing to improve in the band? And if you can, go ahead and explain in detail how you can make this happen.
Max, I think one of the most important things to improve on in the band is a sense of accountability. I think a lot of the times, many members within the band, including myself, we would many of the times blame like subpar results on outside factors that we couldn't control, rather than focusing on what we could control and do the best with what we have. And I think in that situation, it is really important to focus on what's within reach in order to improve as much as possible. And I think a lot of the times people aren't held accountable because there isn't really clarity in what is expected of them and what each person and the group needs to do each day in order to reach that goal of making it to champs or winning. And, I think going along the lines of my last answer, setting that daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly expectation goal is really important in establishing, real clarity and a sense of accountability within the band.
Mark, that was a really powerful answer. And looking at this right now, this was actually a really good question right here is what have you done in the past 5 months, especially with everything that's going on right now in the world, that has helped the program and the students around you become more successful?
Yeah, man, everything in the world is going crazy right now. But I think that in the past 5 months before this entire pandemic situation, I was able to work towards improving the concert pieces that we had originally planned for the spring concert within the tenor sax section specifically, and get that to the best of its quality. Because the tenor sax section is relatively small within the ensemble, the impact might not be there as much. But I believe that personally, we were able to, as a section, improve on many aspects within all of the pieces, such as the intonation in the featured sections in Baldress and the articulation in the ostinato phrases in undertow. That not only improved the quality of the music within our section specifically, but built on to improve the quality of the ensemble as a whole. And definitely after Conservatory Day, that was a big impact on the lessons that I had learned and my playing style. I think that I also tried to reinforce those same concepts that we had learned as a section into our everyday playing so that we wouldn't lose progress and, keep improving.
Mark, that was a really great answer, especially with what's going on right now. It's amazing to see, individuals like yourself taking those necessary steps in order to make sure that the band is continually improving. Now, with that being said, I do want to ask you this question from the audience. Question number 5. On a scale of 1 to 10, I want to go ahead and rate your rehearsal behavior / work ethic in your concert ensemble, your section, and the entire ensemble. I also want to ask, what have you done to raise that number? And then also, what ideas do you have for raising that number?
That's also a great question. I think if I had to answer on that scale, within my section specifically, I think that I would rate my work ethic as a 9. Within the concert ensemble of wind ensemble, I think a solid 8, and the entire ensemble, considering marching season and concert season, I'd say also an 8. What have I done to raise that number specifically? I've tried to build a discipline of when work needs to be done versus when I can take a break and joke around. As I said earlier, that's one of the ideas I think is to improve within the entire band and also myself. So, building that balance of work versus play is definitely going to get me farther up there on that scale. As to the ideas that I have for raising that number, I think that tracking progress through a daily journal where I continue to rate myself and my performance, and look at things that went well, things that could be improved, and taking that into consideration daily, weekly, and trying to reinstate that same knowledge as I play. And I think furthermore, what I also could do is set aside time more to practice my instrument and improve holistically. With what's going on right now, I definitely have more time to practice, but during the school year, I could see why I would have less time. But I think setting that time scheduled in a journal would definitely help in improving holistically. And finally, I think one of the biggest things would be asking for honest feedback from not only my peers, but also my band mentors like Mr. Witt and Bob for feedback and advice on what I could do to improve.
Yeah, Mark, that's great. So, the next question that we have over here from our audience is, what steps have you taken for individual improvement during your time in the band program at Saugus High School?
I believe that my individual improvement in the band program at Saugus over the past 3 years has really come down to three main things. The first thing is definitely trying to build a deeper understanding of the concert pieces that we've been playing as an ensemble, and trying to put more emotion into every single phrase that we do, and just really build that understanding of the composer's intent and everything that is going along with the piece. Second factor, but definitely still really important, is also when I try to understand my role as a tenor sax player as an individual within the context of the entire ensemble. And I think that is a really important factor that has definitely helped with my improvement over the past 3 years, and something that I will definitely continue to do. The third thing, but definitely not the least important, has been my practice of sight reading over the past few months, especially during these past few months of quarantine. I've had a ton of time to practice, and I think sight reading has definitely boosted my ability to, just read those concert pieces when we get them for the first time, and just play smoothly and with utmost quality as possible.
Mark, yeah, that was a really great answer, actually. So I'm actually really curious to hear, and I think the audience is as well too, on this next one that we've got over here is, if you could, go ahead and describe in detail your past rehearsal behavior and relate it to how deserving you are of a student leadership position in the program.
That's really interesting that you bring that up. I think that the biggest thing that definitely reflects my behavior in the program and how it relates to me deserving a leadership position is my experience as a section leader already last year within marching season. I think there have been many times during marching season that I was able to help develop the technical skills of my section, of the low saxes, whether that be, marching, playing, technique. During sectionals last year and during rehearsals, I think we were really able to, practice really well and develop each individual and the entire section. I also believe that my role as a servant leader, which I tried as much as possible to employ last year, really helped and made the section the best possible that it could be. I think also a defining characteristic that makes me a front runner for drum major is that I like to give feedback where I think it's necessary, but also am an active listener. When people tell me something or they criticize me, I always try to take it, with a grain of salt, and try to see if there's anything that I can also improve with. Finally, I think the best thing about my experience as a section leader that definitely reflects how I can further that as a leadership position as drum major would definitely be my experience, to like organize those events and those sectionals. And I think if I were to be given the role of drum major, I could definitely put forth my organization skills and help the ensemble in any way possible.
Honestly, Mark, yeah, I can see why you are deserving of a leadership position. And honestly, that just really dives into the next question that we have here from the audience that I am just waiting to hear about is, if you could, please go ahead and identify the characteristics and actions of an effective section leader.
Max, I believe that the characteristics and actions of an effective section leader come down to three main things. I definitely think that first thing is being able to, take that role of leadership and authority when needed. The second definitely being having a sense of not only organization but delegation within the section. And third, but very important, is playing that servant leader position that is so very important when you are in a leadership position. In terms of leadership and authority, I definitely think that being able to help that set the standard of both marching and playing is one of the biggest roles that you can play as a section leader in terms of helping your section improve to its utmost quality. And furthermore, in terms of the organization and delegation, I believe that being able to organize practices, whether that be summer sectionals or just hanging out with the section over breaks, that's definitely important of a student leader. And not only doing that, but also being efficient with your time and being able to balance your role of student leadership with your outside life and find that perfect balance in between. Lastly, but definitely very important, I think that being that servant leader that I always try to enforce is very important in terms of putting the needs of others, whether that be the section or the entire ensemble, before your own, and providing not only that constructive criticism to help people improve, but also a sense of understanding and compassion to be able to take that criticism and try to improve yourself.
Wow, Mark, those are really great characteristics of a leadership, just even in general. This is actually a really good question that comes up from our audience is, if you could, please identify, your personal goals for the 2020 Marching Centurions band season. And if you can, diving into both musically, visually, and a socially perspective.
I think definitely setting those goals and expectations right from the very beginning is one of the most important things that you can do, not only as an individual, but as an ensemble. Personally, I think that my musical goal for the year is to be able to play as one big cohesive unit as an ensemble on the field and really just amplify all that sound out towards the stands. Even though we're marching, I still also want to be able to pay attention to those little aspects like articulation and dynamics and those musical phrases to be able to, improve the quality of our music, even though we're out on the field. And when we are out on the field, I know that, speaking from personal experience, I've gone through this as well, but focus definitely tends to slip as you get farther into the show. Fatigue starts to hit, but definitely just trying to get technique right, marching, and staying on top of all your musical aspects and marching aspects is definitely going to be important next year. Uh, Furthermore, in terms of the visual aspects, I think that I want to be able to put in 110% of effort into every single visual that we have, whether that be, simple lunges or complex body movements that require so much effort. I really just want to put as much emotion into that as possible to be able to convey the message of our show out to the audience and really just make them say, wow. Lastly, but definitely still really important, the social aspect of band. I personally want to make band feel like a second home for other people that they can confine in. We want to always welcome everyone, but also have fun while we're doing it. And I think that creating those bonds and friendships within the program is definitely one of the biggest things that people love band for. And that's one of the things that I definitely want to continue in the program. Those last a lifetime, and whether it's like, a shoulder to cry on or just laughing with your friends over stupid stuff, band is really going to be that environment where people can, feel comfortable and welcome.
Mark, that was a great list of goals. And honestly, with your tenacity, I would not be surprised if you accomplished all of them and then some. So we're coming to the last question from our audience. And this is something that really a lot of people want to know is, if you could, please name 3 leaders that you look up to and the traits of their leadership style that you hope to emulate.
Yeah, that's a great question. There have certainly been a lot of people over my life that have influenced both my thoughts and my actions, but I think the 3 most apparent leaders, I should say, that come to mind, and that I could only hope to take lessons from are my AP US history teacher, Mr. Klippel, my middle school band director, Mr. Bennett, and my amazing older brother, Matt. Yeah. In terms of what I hope to emulate from them, Mr. Klippel, he is not only a great teacher, but he will encourage you on every step of the way, if it be homework or tests or just life goals that you want to achieve. He'll always be there to not just cheer you on, but to make you feel like you are really capable of doing what you set out to do. Mr. Bennett, man, what can I say? He was a great friend, not just a mentor to me. I remember there was this one time he even played in a concert with us on drum set, which is one of the most unforgettable memories that I still have of him. But he is definitely one of the most compassionate and caring individuals that I've ever met in my life. And his smile and his teachings definitely brought happiness to people. And I really appreciate how he always took the time to do that in class and whenever he saw possible. Lastly, my older brother, Matt, he has definitely been one of the most influential people in my life. You know, it's not always the time where he doesn't always give me the most enjoyable options to choose from, but he always steers me towards the right direction. And he's always there to offer me advice and show me, not specifically what's wrong or right, because everybody has trouble doing that, but he always shows me, he's always real with me, and he's always 100% there. He's always 100% real with me, and is physically and emotionally, he's there for me when I'm going through a rough time. And I think his balance of being such like, a kind and compassionate brother while being, that strict and loving parent figure in my life has definitely built that strong relationship and bond that I hope to share with others, and has definitely shaped me into the person that I am today.
Mark, that was great. I think if anything, something that we can pull is we can look to emulate a lot more positive characteristics from people in our own lives that we look up to. Now, I know we're nearing the end of the show. It's been an amazing interview, and I'm really happy to have you here. I did want to open up the floor to you. What's one thing that you wanted to leave with our audience tonight?
Max, I'm really excited for next year's show. And whatever happens, I'm definitely looking towards, that period of growth and improvement in terms of not only my musicianship, but as a person. And, building those friendships definitely. And also putting in that 110% towards helping the band in whatever way possible and work towards that goal of champs.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's The Tonight Show. I'm your host, Max Powers. Go ahead and give it up for our legendary guest, the frontrunner from Drum Major 2021, Mark Manguinao.